was finishing research for a different video tonight when the news broke. Trump announced that the U.S. Navy is going to blockade the Strait of Hormuz starting Monday morning at 10 a.m. Peace talks with Iran have just collapsed, and Israel is bombing Lebanon village by village with a stated goal of demolishing every town along the border. And yesterday, Apple seemed to have removed the names of nearly every town and village in Lebanon from its maps. Meanwhile, Google and every other mapping service still shows them normally. So while the video I was going to make tonight was going to be about Trump's Board of Peace and breaking all of that down, I've decided to pivot a little bit because all of these things have to do with one another. And once you see how, I think the news is going to stop looking like a bunch of separate crises and start looking like one story. One very complete, very scary, albeit, story. We've all heard of Trump's Board of Peace. You probably know the basic pitch. So Trump set up an international body to oversee Gaza's reconstruction after the war, and the UN endorsed it, and 26 countries signed on, and on paper, it looked like diplomacy. But this Board of Peace, as I've been investigating it, has a lot more going on than what meets the eye. So here's what I want you to hold on to from the beginning of this, okay? Gaza is not the goal of this Board of Peace. Gaza is where the board was built, and Gaza is the crisis that made it politically possible to build something like this in the first place. But the reconstruction of Gaza in any form, whether it becomes a rebuilt city or a techno Riviera or nothing at all, is not really the point. Gaza is but one node in a much, much larger map. And while Donald Trump may be the head chair of this Board of Peace, he is not the man at the center of it. It's a billionaire named Larry Ellison. Let me walk you through how I got here. In January of 2026, the UN Security Council voted to endorse a new international body called the Board of Peace. And they were told this was going to be a multilateral oversight mechanism for Gaza's reconstruction, chaired by Trump, signed onto by 26 other countries, and designed to administer humanitarian aid to support Gaza's eventual transition back to Palestinian governance. I mean, this is what every major outlet reported, and this is what the Security Council thought that they were endorsing. But here's the thing. They voted on the concept before the actual charter was public knowledge, which means that they endorsed the idea of the board before anyone outside of a very small circle had seen the actual rules. And the procedural question of how the UN ended up endorsing a document that they had not read is its own scandal, and one I'll come back to in another video. But for tonight, what matters is what happened when the charter finally did surface, because two things became very clear. The first is that the charter names Donald Trump personally, not as the President of the United States, but Donald Trump, the private citizen, as the lifetime chairman, which means when he leaves the White House in January of 2029, he keeps the chair. And the rules that prevent a sitting president from profiting from foreign governments stops applying the moment that he leaves office. In fact, JP Morgan is currently in negotiations to set up a private account for this organization accessible by Trump personally. And countries, if they want to have a permanent seat at this table, have to pay $1 billion to the Board of Peace. So essentially, Trump personally, for life, gets control of a multi-billion-dollar international organization with no auditing, no oversight, long after he leaves the White House. Now, this is why I don't buy into the idea that he's never leaving the White House. I don't think he has any interest in staying in the White House past 2029. Because think about it, what's waiting for him on the other side is being the emperor of the Middle East. Now, the second thing that has become clear is Gaza's role in this board, or more accurately, its absence from it. While the board was pitched as a Gaza reconstruction plan, the charter does not mention Gaza. The word does not appear in the document one time. Instead, and this is really important, the charter gives the board authority to operate, and I quote, in any region affected or threatened by conflict, which means anywhere in the world with no geographic limit. Now that is what you call a blank check of power. I mean, think about it. That means any territory currently at war, or any territory recovering from a war, or any territory that someone in power decides is threatened by a war can just be pulled under the Board of Peace's jurisdiction. So the question is why? Like, why would they remove the word Gaza from a document that the entire world was told was about Gaza? Like, why build a vehicle with no geographic limits when the stated mission was just one specific place? So the executive board has 9 voting members. The January 16th White House announcement, though, named 7, which means that 2 names were concealed and only surfaced 10 days later through leaked documents obtained by Dropsite News. Tonight, I want to focus on the names that connect directly to this news that is breaking right now. And first up is none other than Jared Kushner. See, Kushner is the most connected figure on this board. He is not just Trump's son-in-law, and he's not just the architect of the Abraham Accords. See, he is the bridge between 3 separate networks that converge on this Board of Peace, and you need to see all 3 in order to understand why he matters so greatly. The first network is Gulf Sovereign Wealth, because one day after Kushner left the White House in 2021, I'm not kidding, one day, he launched a private investment fund called Affinity Partners. And within months, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund invested over $2 billion in it, despite their own financial advisors rating the fund as unsatisfactory in all aspects. And it's largely because that money was not a bet on Kushner's investment skill sets. It was a bet on what he would be able to do the next time his family was in power. And what do you know, the UAE and Qatar followed closely behind. And a Senate Finance Committee investigation led by Senator Ron Wyden later concluded that the fund is likely part of a compensation scheme involving U.S. political figures designed to circumvent foreign agent registration laws. Now Kushner sits on the Board of Peace negotiating the future of Gaza, while the government's funding his private firms sit across the table from him as member states. And the second network he's connected to is the Israeli Business Network, and this is where the actual reconstruction plans come from. You know, the Mediterranean Riviera concept and the $50 billion coastline development that Kushner brought to Davos. Yeah, all of that was designed by an Israeli billionaire named Yakir Gabay. And Gabay has been a close personal friend of Kushner's for over a decade, and he began drafting the plan within days of October 7th, by the way. Oh, and he's also an executive on the Board of Peace. So, which brings us to the third network that no one is really talking about when it comes to the Kushners, and it's the one that matters most. You see, Kushner's relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu is not a political alliance that started when Jared became a White House advisor. Oh no, it is a multi-decade family patronage relationship that predates Trump's entire political career. When Netanyahu would visit New Jersey in the 1990s, before his first term as Israeli prime minister, he stayed at the Kushner family home in Livingston and slept in Jared Kushner's childhood bedroom. And Jared, a mere teenager at the time, would then move into the basement for the night whenever Benjamin Netanyahu would come and stay in his, what I can only assume is a race car bed. Why was Benjamin Netanyahu in Jared Kushner's childhood bedroom? Because Charles Kushner, Jared's father, was paying Benjamin Netanyahu hundreds of thousands of dollars in speaking fees. See, that fun fact surfaced publicly when Charles's brother, Murray Kushner, sued him for misusing the family company funds, and part of the alleged misuse was the money that he paid to Benjamin Netanyahu. Oh, and this is interesting. In 2007, a leaked list of millionaires that Netanyahu had compiled of his potential political donors listed Charles Kushner as a top-tier donor alongside Sheldon Adelson. Meanwhile, Donald Trump appeared on the same list in the bottom tier, rated as least likely to give money. Well, I mean, you can't give money when you're cash broke, can you? And so when you see Jared Kushner sitting on this Board of Peace negotiating for the future of Gaza, he's not just representing the Trump administration's policy. He's not even just representing his family of Trump. He's representing this multi-decade family financial and political relationship with the Prime Minister of Israel, which predates his marriage to Ivanka, predates Trump's political career, and predates any of the roles that we now associate with him. Which is why Netanyahu isn't on the Board of Peace. He doesn't need to be. He's got his angles covered. The Israeli interest on this board runs through the Kushner family's private financial network through a relationship that started in a New Jersey bedroom in the 1990s and has never ended.